After a tight battle last week at Indy in the GTOs, the boxcar drivers take their Dorito-shaped colleagues and move to a course that causes no shortage of consternation, Summit Point Raceway. Who will survive the multi-class mayhem, and who will pine for last week's wider circuit? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 8 of the iRacing IMSA Vintage series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Adam Lindgren, and joining me shortly in the booth is my colleague Stephen Kernick, and he is joined by our director Daniel Costello using cameras by Dougie Beard. This is the first track that I ever raced an Audi GTO on, and to find out why Summit Point is often a bloodbath in IMSA Vintage, let's take you down to our GSRC track guide.
Welcome to Summit Point Raceway. Once the stomping grounds of IMSA and Trans Am vehicles thundering through the West Virginia mountains, this circuit is now mainly used for club racing and performance driver training. Situationed a couple hours west of Washington, D.C., there are actually two entirely separate circuits that can be tackled here on the iRacing service. The main circuit is just shy of 2 miles in length, including 10 turns, and can be chopped off into the short version, which has 9 turns and only 1.5 miles for a lap. The Jefferson Circuit is its own 1.1 mile piece of pavement with a mere 7 turns and uniquely can be run in reverse. Both tracks are astonishingly narrow and provide quite a technical challenge. On the main course, the most popular place to pass is down into the first corner hairpin. While some drivers may try a brave dive into turn 5, the frighteningly fast-kinked entry makes it prone to things going wrong quickly. Between there and turn 9, it's essentially a single-file affair with nothing but tight and twisty bends snaking their way around. The Jefferson Circuit isn't used as often, and because there are a few straights long enough to get a run on someone, most drivers are forced to wait for a mistake to pounce on. Otherwise, qualifying will be key. Believe it or not, IMSA's GT class raced here in the late 80s, and even Can-Am stopped in back in 86. While it probably sees much more competition here in the virtual world, it's easy to see why plenty of real drivers love to take their vehicles out to try and tackle this historic Appalachian venue.
Well, there you saw a bunch of different cars going around this track, but the IMSA Vintage vehicles have a big challenge around here, especially because of the multi-class. Turn 1 is always a challenge on the first lap given how tight the cars are and how much of a run it is from Paddock Bend all the way down to it. Wagon Bend doesn't seem to cause much issues, but through the chute and through what I effectively call, I kindly call Yard Sale Corner before the carousel, that is where most of the issues happen for the multi-class. Then it is a gentle, very slow run through the carousel and the S's, which takes us down to the short chute to Paddock Bend. The GTPs need to be very careful on Paddock Bend because the GTOs need the entire length of the track and exit in order to get the best run possible, and so they're going to be sticking on line there for sure. The GTOs, on the other hand, are just going to have to try and survive the GTPs cutting through, and based upon the split that we have today, it's more GTOs than GTPs, and that's going to create a little bit of consternation for our drivers today. But let's head down to the championships and see how our drivers are doing today. It is Andreas Valenteus who still has the lead of the GTP championship over Nick Makanos who is 84 points back. And actually, I'm reading this wrong. It is Jacob Reed actually who has the GTP championship lead over Jack Wells. Cal Young is a distant 3rd position with Seamus Power back in 4th. Farron Grau down in 5th position with Ilka Kodasalo in 6th spot. And then Ardo Iamaki, Brendan Lim, Raul Roches Guardia, and Davide Ricardo round out your top 10 in the GTPs. Now let's head over to the GTOs. And in the GTO class, we have another series of drivers. Currently, it's Joram Van Hicks with the lead of the championship series, with Josh Brain in 2nd position, Andreas Schuster down in 3rd spot with Noah Lundberg in 4th, Mickey Friesen in 5th, and Yanni Komanen in 6th position, Martin Krajcik down in 7th, Philly Rolla in 8th spot with Andreas Valenteus in 9th. Yes, he is racing both classes, and Ilka Kodasalo also racing both classes down in 10th position. The race details are that is round 8 of 12 for these drivers. 40 minutes out there with open setups and no spare vehicle. They can set up the car however they like or dislike, but if they get off into the grass and crash, that's it for them. A drive-through at 17 incidents and disqualification at 25, and we definitely hit those 17 incidents around this particular track. This track is a real challenge, and with the weather that we have today, it's cloudy out there. Very, very cloudy, in fact. It is 70 degrees Fahrenheit in the air, 71 on track, with a very calm wind out of the south. So it's a very, very dark day out there for these drivers. We're into qualifying, 5 minutes left to go. And it is Nick Makanos up at the top of the GTP standings with Jani Komanen in the GTOs. And I see a familiar name out there. Philip Lake has decided to jump back into the GTO for Summit Point of all races to try and take the GTO around here. It has been a season and a half since we've seen Philip Lake in the GTO, and it's nice to see him back out here racing. His teammate Nick Makanos currently holds pole position in the GTPs with both laps done for most of the drivers. The laps around here are very quick. Nick Makanos is a 57.1 to Ove Trangerade in his GTO has a 107.6. So it's a good 10-second delta between the two classes, and on as short a lap as we have here, that is going to be a big difference around here for these drivers. Jani Komanen currently holds provisional pole position with that 107.5. Ove Trangerade with a 107.6 in the second position. Interestingly enough, I'm taking a look, and Andres Valenteus is just starting his first flying lap in the GTP. He has yet to set a qualifying time. I'm looking as well at some of the GTOs, and not a lot of front runners tucked in the GTOs back there. And interestingly enough, I do not see Joram van Hicks here today. So that is going to be a big play in the championship out there for these drivers. There you can see just how dark it is out there for the drivers today. A very dark day here at Summit Point. And there we see, I believe that's Phil Lake just taking a park right there. And now we're taking a look at another one of our drivers. This is Noah Lundberg, who's going through the final turn, going through the final section of the course. That's actually Henry Morse who went through the final turn now. I can say that Noah Lundberg is on his second flying lap, currently in 5th position with a 107.9, trying to get up there and beat Jani Komanen's 107.5. Henry Morse going through turn 1 on the start of his first flying lap. Noah Lundberg crosses the line and goes to pole position. A great qualifying time, a 107.55 to Jani Komanen's 107.57. Andres Valenteus crosses the line on, he's just coming through. Yeah, he just crossed the line to start his first flying lap. So let's take a look at Valenteus right now as he's streaking down through and into yard sale here. He's going to dip left and head through the chute section. This is the slowest section for the GTPs. The GTOs are actually faster than the GTPs through this section, so it can cause a little bit of an issue for these drivers. And so as he dips through the left and the right hander, he's going to go underneath the bridge and come in to try and finish his lap. Steven, welcome to the booth. Andres Valenteus, a very quick qualifier in this series. Let's see whether or not he goes to the top.
Well, with the Nissan GTP, it's all about keeping the rev ranges up and ensuring that you keep your foot on the gas, not going to let that turbo go down. You don't want to go and get any bit of wheel slip. And at the moment, he is absolutely giving it everything he's got and utilizing every part of the circuit possible.
Absolutely. Looks like he put in a banker that time. Currently in second position, looking at that provisional pole. Oh, was that dip into the gravel just a little bit too much there? We'll see whether or not they gave him an incident point, but he's pushing like he's still got time. Through yard sale once again and into the chute, trying to get the maximum out of that GTP, but this section just so slow they don't have any downforce to work with, but then picking up the speed once again through the right, then the left, another right, and then under the bridge one more time.
And you can't miss shift at all, literally on the fringes of the track, getting a little bit unstable, hard on the anchors, letting all that aero drag his way through. Little clip of the dirt. Is it enough to move into first place? Got 0.1 of a second to try and beat. Unfortunately, not the case.
Actually, he does. He does beat it. by 0.003 of a second over Nick Makanos. Nick's going to be kicking himself for that one. Wow. You can see Valenteus absolutely stretching it to the edges of the track there. A fantastic qualifying lap.
I've got to say, that is incredibly close and something you never, ever get to see too often. And honestly, that I think is pretty much just wave the checkered flag. I'm done. It's over. That's the race. It's just incredible. But it's time for the Audi GTOs to go and put in some fast lap times, with Ove going and really pushing hard. Once again, trying to keep it up within the turbo ranges, utilizing the four-wheel drive, and just trying to counter a little bit of understeer that creeps in.
Absolutely. And looks like qualifying is going to wrap up for us here. And that will take us to our grid once the session ticks over. Is an intense race out there for these drivers, and there it is, the session taking over into our race session, and it's going to be Andreas Valenteus on pole position for the GTPs by 0.003 of a second over Nick Makanos. Jacob Reed is going to line up behind Valenteus on row 2 with Brendan Lynn lining up behind Nick Makanos. And then we've got Farron Grau in 5th position on row 3 next to Gabri Martinez, Laust Olsen and Christoph Olesniak rounding out row 4, and then Carlos Lopez and Braden Shafroth rounding out row 5. And then is going to be on to the next row 6, Fernando Serrato, Destin Hiroder 11th and 12th with Shady Ahmad in 13th, next to Matthew Cockram on row 7. Eki Anderson on row 8 with Felix Neeson, and then we got Ed Benson and Mark Geller rounding out row 9. Victor Jimenez is the last driver to set a qualifying time of the GTPs, with Daniel Galls lining up as the last driver on.
And absolutely stunning stuff. But let's talk about our GDOs. It's Noel Lindberg in first place, with Joel Camon in second, for the Togo main sheet to get third. Ikel Kotsolo getting fourth place. Mickey Forson in fifth. Doug Cloud in sixth place. Andrew Schuster in seventh. Eighth is Josh Brand, Philip Lake, and Henry Morris going and rounding out row 5 in 10th place. It's Ian Hancock's in 11th with Gregor Borsini, Torben Polvik, Amolo Dakari, and Seamus Power in 15th. 16th is Jamie Hal Smith with Alton Hark and Paul Culver in 18th position. Jocelyn Van Becker in 19th, and 20th is Tim Shoecroft going and rounding out the pack. Carlos Friskin going and not able to put a time on the board, along with Keshan Brown as well, going and not able to get those times on the board. Maybe just going a little bit too hard in qualifying and putting a wheel slightly wrong as they make their way off the grid.
Absolutely. Andres Valenteus is going to lead the pack to the green flag. Looks like it's a smaller field of GTPs than GTOs today. It's 20 GTPs to 22 GTOs for 42 drivers total here around Summit Point. And with Multiclass here today, Steven, it's going to be an exciting battle.
Oh, it's just absolutely incredible. And the classics always provide so much fun, where you've got to go and rely on heel and toe. You've got to get your gearing right. My personal favorite has to be the Audis, where you've got that massive turbo lag to contend with. And especially here at Summit Point, you've got to keep your foot on the button, try and keep climbing up those revs and not getting caught out, as you got the GTOs that will quickly start making their way through traffic come lap 4-5.
Absolutely. So it's going to be a very tense race for these drivers, and it's going to be very tense if any of the GTPs make it have an accident through turn 1. It happens fairly commonly around here. I think it's about 3/4 of the time when the IMSA Vintage Series comes and visits this track. They haven't been here for a couple of seasons though, so the question is, have the driving standards changed? Has the track changed? Have the cars changed? We're about to find out here as we get ready to go. Noel Lundberg leading the GTOs to the line with Yanni Komanen next to him. Yanni winning the race last week. A very tense race there at Indy with some good defense. Yanni Komanen finishing out in at the win, so he's very close to the front of the pack here. And then Andreas Valenteus took the win last week as well by 15 seconds over Nick Makanos. Those two sparking up their battle again here at the front of the field.
It's good to see renewed interest after the Road America 500 that brought a lot of new names to the forefront to appreciate the classic machinery out here, but also having to learn new setups to try and develop, hone, and improve through all of it. So I do think we might see some surprising changes during the course of this race as we head for the start.
Absolutely. Valentejus has now taken control of the field as the Porsche pace car has pulled off. He can go at any point. He doesn't have to wait for the green flag. There is no start zone here in IMSA Vintage, so he's just holding up the field. Everyone very patient. And there he takes the jump, and he gets quite the jump over Nick Bacanos. Jacob Reed is actually going to look to follow Andres Valentejus through. Nick Bacanos is going to try and beat him out on the outside of turn 1. But remember, cold tires, cold brakes, cold everything. But Nick Bacanos holding strong on the outside. Looks like the GTPs are going to make it clean through turn 1. What about the GTO start, Steven?
Never mind, a little bit more chaotic, actually, as everyone's fishing all over the show. Our leaders, unfortunately, landing up into the dirt. And it looks like a bit of damage starting to be carried on by quite a few of the drivers. Early stages of the races not going to plan, and now everyone having to figure out what they can do. Lundberg getting the best run out of the lot, but unfortunately it's all the way down for the likes of Morse, who lost out a bit of time into the dirt as well. Kuminen also was one of those top runners, unfortunately landing up with a bit of damage to the front nose, now having to claw his way through, and they don't rely as much on aero as the GTPs towards the front.
Yeah, Kaminen was last week's winner, and he ends up in that early incident, so something happened before they even got to the final turn that caused him to have a problem. Matthew Cockram, though, in a nice battle here with Felix Nielsen. Nielsen doing a good job at defending there into turn 1 around the outside. A good hard braking zone there. But the middle of the pack of the GTPs, Seamus Power has gone around to the GTOs as well. He's fallen back. There he is against that berm. And unfortunately, he's going to have to take a tow as we take a look at Jacob Reed, putting some pressure on second place Nick Bacanos.
It's going to be a hard press for Jacob because now he's in the error watch. And remember, this era wasn't worrying about what the air looks like behind the car and it's going to disturb your opponents. No. This is about maximizing as much downforce for yourself. So getting closer to the competition starts to upset the car. You start feeling a little bit more vibration and start losing that tunnel underneath that sucks you down to the circuit. So the drivers are having to push a little bit too hard and landing up in the dirt. So this is the start of our GTOs, and rear contact that landed up with a twist round, unfortunately getting back into the field, everyone having to take evasive maneuvers. A slight contact to the front. It could have been worse. It could have been worse for Kuminen.
What surprises me is just how close to the GTPs. Oh my goodness, this happened well before the start of the race when that incident happened. How close to the GTPs the GTOs were. Usually they give them 5 to 6 seconds, but they were right up tucked behind them. So that's probably what caused the accident. People just not expecting to be that close to the GTPs and just causing a little bit of a surprise there.
Constantina effect becoming a little bit more of a problem. Josh Brain up on the inside, getting the pass done and dusted and really trying to carry on as much momentum as possible. But it is in a fight for 13th position as it's a little bit side by side, trying to cycle through the gears as quick as possible. Josh feeling the pressure, needing to really go and defend the apexes. And you can hear trying to keep the revs up as much as possible, not to lose out any drive and not to fall into that turbo lag.
Our GTP leader is just about to catch up to the last of the still running GTOs. That's Kayshawn Brown in the number 42 machine. We're taking a look still at Josh Brain. And then here is Mark Geller getting past. Mark Geller getting past for the 17th position by Daniel Gaulis. Good job from Gaulis. And then Braden Shafroth has had a little bit of an issue. Braden now under some pressure.
Feeling it not too well, and you can see just trying to eye out what's happening with the car before picking up the pace yet again. The question is, what are the GTO drivers going to do when they suddenly have all the Nissans starting to find their way through? Because it is close pack racing right the way through the fields on both classes' side on a circuit that is very, very narrow and doesn't leave a lot for dropping a wheel off it. Anyway, you run out of room very quickly.
Yeah, if we could hop on board with Andres Valenteos as he starts to cut his way through the GTOs. Look at this. One of the GTOs going wide, just feeling the pressure from the GTP leaders. This can often happen for the first couple of cars in the GTO pack as those drivers with less experience with the multi-class action. But now Valenteus is going to catch up to the pack of GTOs at one of the worst times, coming underneath the bridge. The GTOs are trying to maintain as much speed as possible, and the GTP is trying to cut their way through. Valenteus is going to have to wait behind Carlos Fonseca here before heading through the corner, and that's also going to hold up the drivers behind Nick Laconce and Jacob Reed. The GTOs having battles up ahead. Valenteus can duck to the inside here. He should be able to get past most of this pack, but it's going to be, he's going to be able to get past Josephine Becker, who can't take the apex because Valenteus is right there.
Oh, it's absolutely well done, and having to really shift down the gears to get it all sorted out. But Mechanos now doing everything, but big incident up ahead with the GTOs and landing up more into the dirt. As drivers starting to feel it, tires starting to wear out, running over those curbs and starting to watch their mirrors a little bit more, lands up in a huge problem. But now, what is going to be it? As we see Gregor Simi getting a little bit of sideways, catches a tank slapper, nearly catches it, comes back. Oh, bit of an impact up against Castro Colors, and now just trying to limp that car back a little bit. Unfortunately, definitely some big impact there, and you can be sure that he will be watching his temperatures in the car that will be starting to skyrocket.
Taking a look at Christoph Lesniak with Gabriel Martinez and Brendan Lim ahead of him. Brendan Lim trying to hold on to that 5th position with a heavy and very quick Gabriel Martinez pushing alongside. Going to come alongside him, and I can report that Jacob Reed and Nick Bacanos up ahead were battling through turn 1 as well. And there is that move. Oh my goodness, a pile driver from Last Olsen in the back of Lesniak, and we got a pile up in turn 1.
It's one way to land up with a problem, and unfortunately a few casualties in that fight as well. A couple of the GTOs trying to maintain their line, suddenly not having anywhere to go, get collected. Brandon Liam trying to make up some time as he is on the back and trying to see if he can get out of that 6th place position with Martinez just ahead of him.
So Jacob Reed was able to get past Nick Macanos for that 2nd position, and Macanos is now under heavy pressure from Farron Grau for 3rd. We're taking a look at Brendan Lim, who's still tucked into the back of Gabriel Martinez. They were able to avoid that incident with a Lesniak, so he's able to try and follow through. They're going to get past Fonseca themselves and now get onto the front straightaway, but just that little breakup meant that there's no battle between the two of them on this straightaway. Shady Ahmad, on the other hand, is putting heavy pressure on Carlos Lopez in the background, and there is that pass getting done by Shady, making a nice pass there on Lopez. Oh, Brendan Lim actually went off track, so that allowed Gabriel Martinez to sneak by, and now Shady Ahmad's on the back of Brendan.
Always a difficult one, and losing out even more time, running out a bit wide. Seems like not quite having the drive. That is just getting a little bit more exciting.
Very gutsy move there from Brendan Lim to sneak his way by. I can report that Daniel Gaius has gone off track a little bit. He's now resumed in 17th position in the GTPs, so able to recover there without much damage. But yeah, Brendan Lim just struggling a little bit after getting off track that one time. The rear tire is starting to get a little warm for him. So Andres Valenteus setting the fastest lap at the front of the field. He's 3.5 seconds clear.
Sub 1 minute time in a car that is going and older than most that are going and viewing. It's absolutely incredible stuff, and to see the drivers pushing that a little bit harder, trying to get a little bit more climb. Brendan Lim late on the anchors, trying to push a little bit more into the corner, not having an easy time out there.
Here's the replay of what happened with Laust Olsen. He's under pressure from Martin Krajcik. He just takes it super deep into turn 1, absolutely sending Lesniak through the corner. That also catches out Krajcik and a couple of our GTOs. I believe that was Thorben Pollock and Josephine Becker who got into that incident. So taking a look now, here's Carlos Lopez as he's trying to catch up to the back of Braden Shafroth, and they're trying to catch up to the back of Brendan Lim, who's putting that pressure on Shady Ahmad. Look at this, trying to go around the inside. Oh, it just makes contact with the GTO, sending him absolutely pinwheeling. Oh, Brendan Lim trying to take an opportunity at a door that was always going to close.
And Andreas, unfortunately, going from driving a GTO with 4 wheels and unfortunately another one into the dirt. Andreas started out driving and suddenly became a flight sim doing a barrel roll.
So unfortunately for that driver, that was Andreas Schuster, actually, who had contact there. Mickey Friesen getting a little bit of contact. Here's the replay. Oh my goodness, that was another big incident that we missed with Jani Komanen again. Jani Komanen having trouble in the back of the GTO field, and Komanen's out of this race. Last week's race winner out early in this week's race. We're not even 10 minutes in.
This is just turning into a nightmare run for some, but for a lot of other drivers, it's just about keeping it all together. And this is where you start to wonder of, do you just try and get it to the line? If you have that little bit of light contact that comes in, get it fixed, get yourself back out there, continue on the race. Even though you might be further down, it's worth just seeing the checkered flag, especially in the GTO class where it's a little bit more punishing at this point.
Here's Andreas Schuster, and there's Brendan Lim taking up the inside, trying to take away that apex, but he just barely had a nose in, and Schuster absolutely hitting off of the tire barrier there and spinning like a top. That's the end of Schuster's day. Steven, I said in the intro that it was going to be a bloodbath, but I didn't expect it to be this bad this early.
Commentator's curse being utilized. You need to be positive. It's going to be a good race. Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of the GTO field being cleaned out. Lundberg is still leading out the pack and trying to keep going, with Friesen chasing down 2.6 seconds, and then Cloud in third will be trying to close up that gap. But it's still the fight for the lead for our GTPs that are really booting their way around the track.
Absolutely. Jacob Reed's been able to close that 3.5 second gap on Andres Valenteus. It's now under half a second now for Reed on Valenteus. We know that Reed has been able to put pressure on Valenteus over the course of this season, but it hasn't been enough. Andres Valenteus, at this point in the season, has won every single race he has raced in the GTPs that he has finished in, and in the GTOs, the same is true there as well. So he has been undefeated this season in both classes, but he currently leads the GTP class with 4 wins.
Well, let's see how long it can go, because traffic is starting to play a big factor. Reed was a lot closer, just not enough room to get on the throttle to try and get past, and will need to really dig deep at the moment. Lots of gravel being brought onto the track for the drivers to contend with a bit later on in the race. Might not be a factor now, but in the final 10 minutes, you wish that you never had a dirty circuit.
Yeah, something I learned when racing this series years ago was that my best opportunity to try and make a pass at a turn one was actually to back off a little bit before the bridge turn and then carry a ton of speed through the bridge and then onto the back straightaway. And then oftentimes I would avoid a lot of the aero wash from the driver behind, and if from about 6/10 back, I could gain that time and then make a late dive into turn one. We're taking a look at Nick McConnell, who's trying to defend against Farron Grau right now. Nick has fallen back 8 seconds off the back of our leaders.
Going and losing out a little bit of time, caught up behind the GTOs, and Nicholas now just being rather patient, waiting for the right moment to get onto the power. With these cars, you don't want to be too hasty. There's no traction control to try and save you. It's just brute force on the way through.
Very tight moment there from Andres Valenteus with Jamie Hamill-Smith as he goes by. Jamie Hamill-Smith and Ove Trangrade battling for 8th position of the GTOs, but the battle for the lead of the GTPs is side by side as they hit down to turn one. Jacob Reed trying to swing around the outside. Valenteus, he parks it on the apex. Keeps Reed unsettled in through the corner, and on the exit he gains that 5/10 back, but now he's got traffic to work out for. Ilkka Kodasalo up ahead of him is going to hold him up just a little bit as they go through the bend, and now into the chute they go. It's going to be tight. Valenteus is off. Reed takes the opportunity. He jumps ahead. Valenteus recovers. Ian Haycock's just in a little bit of an awkward position for Valenteus. Valenteus now 2nd position. He's going to have to gain that spot back.
And now Haycox has got a bit of a problem to try and hold that 6th place, as Kitso trying to get onto the drive and will be putting a lot of pressure to make a move. But Reed, who's been biding his time, now looks to open up that gap as fast as possible.
And here is Nick McConnell still trying to hold off Farron Grau. They're going to catch up to Ove Tringer and have to wait for him to go through the corner. Good timing for both drivers, but Farron Grau got the best of it. But now there's a battle up ahead of them. Ian Haycox and Ilkka Kodasalo side by side. This is going to cause a problem for Farron Grau, who's looking to make a move. And Ian Haycox, look at this. Nick McConnell's trying to look for a way by. Thought about making it 3 wide into turn one, but there's nothing doing that time around. Clodasalo getting past Haycox, and Haycox trying to close the
Boxed
door,
in.
and that's going to box in Nick Mecanos. Farron Grau makes the pass for a third.
Oh, Grau went and waited for the opportunity there. Haycox went and said, I'm going to hold my line. I don't want to be offline at this point. Unfortunately, that went and switched it all up. This has just turned into a big race for Grau to get that little bit of momentum and claw his way towards a podium.
And here we are back with the lead of the race, Jacob Reed and Andres Valenteus. You're not missing anything in the GTOs just yet. Mickey Freeze has been closing the gap on Noah Lindbergh, but still at 2 seconds. We'll take a look at that one when we can. Valenteus with a very scary moment getting past second place Mickey Freeze, and that is the gap between second and first of the GTOs that you're looking at, and the pressure from Valenteus on Jacob Reed for the battle for first. Reed a little bit unsettled through turn one. Valenteus piling on the pressure right now.
Lundberg going and just diving to the right-hand side, trying to protect that first place in the GTO class, and having these GTPs go and give it everything they got around him. No room for error around some point at the best of times. Now go and add two behemoth of machines as the Nissan and the Audi at the moment. I mean, this is just incredible stuff, and this is what we come to love of vintage racing.
And the two best drivers in the Nissan GTPs battling it out for the lead of the race right now. Jacob Reed and Andres Valenteus. Valenteus undefeated this season in both classes when he's raced in either, with 4 wins in the GTPs. Jacob Reed has yet to take a win this season because of that, or rather has yet to take a win when Valenteus has been racing. I'm taking a look, and Jacob does have one single win this season while Valenteus was not there. And I can report that Nick Mecanos has made it past Farron Grau again. So Farron Grau now back to 4th position, Nick Mecanos up to 3rd.
It's going to be a tough time. Martinez going in for the inside. Couldn't quite get the drive just as yet, trying to battle it out. Shifting through the gears, hoping to just get as much drive as possible, but going to be on the back foot into the left-hander and stuck on the outside, having to wait yet another opportunity. Still side by side as they start catching up towards the Audis. He will get into 5th, but down on the brakes as late as possible. Bit of insane madness around. And these cars can stop dead on a dime, but if you go and get too late on the anchors, you're going to lock it up and you're going to have a world of trouble, as we do see Martinez, a beautiful shot off the back of the car. And unfortunately, he's got a monster problem.
Yeah, absolutely. That was Doug Cloud in 3rd position trying to get past Tim Shoecraft in 17th. Oh, and the lead just changed. Jacob Reed and Valenteus were side by side for a moment. Valenteus was ahead for a moment, but Jacob Reed able to hang on to it. These two still battling it out as they go through the second part of this course. Man, there's so much debris on the track, Steven. It's got to be because these drivers a lot of issues with traction in the center of the corner, as we can see Jacob Reed going wide.
Reed also just trying to hang on, and at this point trying to go through the gears. Do you go and heel and toe? Do you brake in a straight line? Do you stand on the power? Where do you go? Well, Valentina is keeping the pressure. Will have the opportune moment to just box him in at any point of the circuit behind the Audis, and that is going to be playing on Reed's mind of having to clear the traffic as fast as possible.
Look at this, all the gravel being picked up by the two drivers with Valenteus with a good run. He's going to take a look. He's going to take a glance over to the outside. He's going to try and do it around the outside of the corner. He's going to late break on Jacob Reed and sweep around the outside, pinching Reed down to the apex. But Reed with a better exit. Both of them very cautious over the bumps. Absolutely flat out they go. And we know Valenteus is brave, but is he this brave? A little bit of contact between the two of them. Jacob Reed hangs on to it, and Valenteus is going to be able to hang on to it as well. Reed retains the lead, but that was a sketchy moment through the twist.
It's a good thing there's lots of error on these cars, but Reed going in counter steering, trying to keep it alive. Now will be making his way through not just the back markers of the Audi GTOs, but his own class as well that can compromise the drive, as we see over trying to carry as much momentum. Battling into turn 1, late on the anchors. So far the 12 car having to battle it out, and it will manage to get the run. Now it's Ian Haycox in 8th place. They'll have to just settle down, get in the tow, and try and pull himself along and wait for the opportunity to get on the line.
Oh, we've had a big wreck coming through yard sale, and even more contact. Doug Cloud having significant contact with a couple of different drivers. This was a gigantic incident involving 5 or 6 drivers, and it all started with Brendan Shafroth trying to take the apex away from Doug Cloud through yard sale and absolutely collecting 6 cars, and that's why I call it that.
I'm quite sure. Maybe you have a car, it's one owner, only driven to the church and back type of approach, but definitely a lot of repair work needed for a couple of the Audis here, as Jamie Hamill-Smith having a go on the inside, couldn't quite get it done, a little bit unsteady, and losing out the drive out of the final corner, and this is going to compromise down the straight to go up through the gears. They're going to have to go late on the anchors, but unfortunately, I think a little bit too little too late.
So in that incident that Doug Cloud had, Philip Blake was able to pass him and get up to a podium position. Philip Blake now 12 seconds off of the lead of the race. Nolan Lundberg in the lead of the GTOs right now. Let's take a look at what happened here. Doug Cloud goes for the apex here, and Braden just sends it deep as well and ends up collecting 4 cars. And as they start recovering, just make a little bit more contact there, but really rough stuff. Oh, we've had another incident in yard sale. As we were watching this, including Doug Cloud, it was a very similar incident, but this time it was between Henry Morse and Doug Cloud. They both spun out through yard sale and ended up, fortunately, it doesn't look like they collected anyone else, but it was just the 2 of them. But that caused a big pileup and a big holdup for our leader, Jacob Reed.
Wonder if Doug Cloud's starting to battle with a bit of suspension damage to his car, and it's just not working out, and he can't get that car slowed down enough. Unfortunately, we have seen a little bit of desperation coming in for the GTPs just to try and clear the GTOs as fast as possible. Unfortunately for any of the GTO drivers, you've got one line to play with, otherwise you're going to understeer off into the dirt.
We do have 5 drivers who have DNF so far. Mark Geller, Yanni Komanen, last week's winner in the GTOs, Gregorio Buscemi, Keyshawn Brown, and Seamus Power. All of them having incidents there. You can see all the dirt getting kicked up. Jamie Hamill-Smith hanging on to a battle there. And here's Henry Morse, who was in that incident with Doug Cloud. Doug Cloud's now 6 positions back of Henry Morse. Henry Morse just trying to hang on to this spot at the moment, and our lead in the GTPs has closed again. Andres Valenteus still putting pressure on Reed. Under 20 minutes to go.
Time ticking over. Reed with a single win underneath his name, looking to make it 2 at this point, but it's going to be a hard venture so far. 0.3 of a second to the likes of Andreas, who is just keeping the pressure up very, very late onto the brakes, just to try and close it up, maybe waiting, biding the time, the right opportunity to get that pass done and dusted.
Such different lines from Jacob Reed and Valenteus, as Valenteus taking alternate lines to Reed to maintain the aerodynamics on the car. So much gravel through Wagon Bend as we see the parked, I believe that was the parked Braden. It was Braden Shafroth who was parked off of yard sale. He's going to take that car to the tow. So absolutely intense battle here between our leaders, and they're now catching up to the back of some lapped GTP traffic. That's how quick these drivers are going. 17 minutes left, and they're lapping through the back of the GTP traffic. Look at that. Jacob Reed held up a little bit. Andres Valenteus with a draft. He's got a good opportunity here as they're going to head into 1.
Going to have to lock down that inside line, ensuring that he can keep it all together. Jacob Reed going late on the brakes, trying to throw the car in. Andreas around the outside there. Aggressive driving style definitely coming into play. And he's able to hold it on through the marbles. He's got the advantage into the left-hander. And Reed down into second place. No contention of the fight there. We'll have to just try and pull it back.
They go past our leader in the GTOs, Noah Lundberg. That was Noel in the black GTO. And so the leaders of both classes converging for the second time this race. Jacob Reed has lost the position to Valenteus just on a little bit of a miscommunication with some traffic. And that is just the command that Valenteus has of this car and the experience he has in this series. Reed has been racing this series about as long, if not longer, than Valenteus. But Valenteus has come to it like a fish to water. The man's an alien in anything he steps into.
Valenteus has definitely got and proven himself as a formidable foe, but don't count out Jacob Reed as yet. He's shown his hand once, twice, 3 times more. He knows he can contend with it as we take a look at Carlos Lopez, who's trying to make his way around the circuit. Definitely hard on the brakes, just trying to slow the car down, get it all settled, and get back onto the power to catch up. Been a bit of a tough race for our mid-pack of our GTOs. They have been fighting their way through.
Yeah, Fernando Serrato just getting past Carlos Lopez, as well as Felix Nilsson getting past Lopez. So both of them able to get past Carlos Lopez. Lopez struggling just a little bit right now. Lopez currently has dropped 2 positions now just on this lap alone since his starting position. So Lopez starting to even out. Looks like his qualifying was a little bit better than he can do on a race pace. I can report that Valenteus and Jacob Reed, with a little bit of clear air, running some of their fastest laps of the day, some of the fastest sectors of the day. So we take a look at a very damaged Doug Cloud battling it out with Thorben Pollock through turn 1.
Cloud definitely having that tough run out there, trying everything he can to keep it going, but it's going to have to be late on the anchors. But I've got to say, considering all the damage, Doug Cloud has still kept it going regardless and is still wanting to see the checkered flag. And at this point, going to be getting warnings on the dash that everything's getting a bit warm. So having to manage the water temperature, the oil temperature, and also to make sure that the engine doesn't take a beating. Well, going and fighting out, trying to also maintain the lead and ensure that he comes up with a big win.
Absolutely, Noah Lundberg, our leader in the GTOs, 2.3 seconds to the good of Mickey Friesen. Mickey did have that underneath a second, down to 1.8, but due to the traffic, he's fallen back just a little bit. We'll see whether or not he can recover that in the final 15 minutes of this race. As we look on board with Mickey Friesen with his microphone positioned right exactly where you want it at the moment, and so just racing with great abandon is Mickey Friesen. Or is Mickey Friesen trying to catch up to Noah Lundberg?
And utilizing an H pattern to go and shift it properly. Gotta say, that's the right way to do it. Round rim, H pattern, heel and toe, and go for it. Mickey Friesen going and showing off some great form there.
Absolutely, it's the only way to drive the Audi GTO as fast as possible. You lose 2 to 5/10 of a second per lap if you run the automatic or the assisted gearboxes into the GTO. So going out and buying an H pattern is definitely the best way to get around in the Audi. And even then, you'll still struggle a little bit with the gearbox. It's a very challenging gearbox. No synchros to really help you out there. But Nick Makanos, there you see him. Lost second place early on in the race, but has still been able to maintain third, currently 10 seconds off of the lead.
Has been on a proper charge. Matthew Cockram and down in 15th position, also trying to get a little bit more of a climb up through the order. Not having the easiest time, and will have to find it out. Going late on the anchors, unfortunately, traffic going and taking away any opportunity to move up through the order.
Our lead in the GTPs has stretched out a little bit. Jacob Reed losing some time to Andres Valenteus, but a little bit of traffic bringing them together once again as through yard sale they go. There is Matthew Cockram still putting that pressure onto Daniel Gallus right now. Very high pressure is Matthew Cockram onto Gallus at the moment as they head into yard sale. Ooh, very wide from Gallus actually.
Gallus not having an easy time there. Matthew Cockram also getting caught out, having to just try and open up the door. But Matthew was actually quicker on the last lap compared to the likes of Gallus. Did a 101 where Gallus managed to do a 105 around the circuit. I mean, these cars can do sub 1 minute, and with traffic it does hold it up, but a 105 to a 101, big difference in Cockram starting to smell the blood in the water.
Someone else smelling the blood in the water is Ian Haycox on Henry Morse. We're riding on board with Ian right now. Taking a look to the inside there of Morse. Here comes Laust Olsen. We had that early contact with Lesniak. He actually spins out behind these two drivers. So Laust Olsen just not having a great day today. Henry Morse taking a little bit more aggressive through the right-hander and into yard sale they go. Ian Haycox trying to put some pressure onto Morse as they go through the chute.
Morse is just soaking up the pressure, and you can see not deviating from the line. And a big tank slapper for Ian as he has to counter steer to try and bring it back, avoiding the GTPs. But you can see how just a simple misstep can throw you way down the order, and especially with a bit of damage on the car, it does take you out of the slipstream. And now Jamie Hamill-Smith will be gaining a bit of time. So far, Jamie's managed to gain 11 positions off the start of the race.
Jamie Hamill-Smith, one of our highest climbers in the GTOs. Carlos Fonseca is actually our highest climber. He's up quite a few positions from his starting position. Here's Philip Lake. Philip used to be a regular in this series, driving for Dirty Torque Racing back when there was a strong battle between Dirty Torque Racing and Glacier Racing for the championship. There used to be 4 Audis just packed under a hat at the front of the field. Those days have come and gone, but Philip Lake joining us once again after quite a while off of driving in the GTOs. Now racing around again. His Dirty Torque teammate who used to race with him at the front of the pack, Nick Mikanos, currently in 3rd position in the GTPs.
Always welcome to have drivers returning to the IMSA Vintage, but it is Christoph who's making a bit of ground, getting right into the toe and trying to gain a position at this moment, utilizing a bit of the traffic in the Leighton House colors and hoping that a bit of the Leighton House luck will come into play as they look to get on by. And may have just done that absolutely beautifully. Line himself up inside line, down the gears they go, and in through, well, your favorite corner. No one else venturing off into the distance. No special yard sales as yet as we go under 10 minutes to the race.
Absolutely. Lesniak on a good recovery drive after getting punted by Rust Olsen early on in the race. So a good recovery drive for Lesniak to get back up to 11th position after that early incident. I can report that the lead in both classes has separated quite a bit. It is now up to a second between Valenteus and Jacob Reed. There we see the gap right there, Valenteus and Reed on screen. Valenteus in the Sunburst machine and Reed in the Lotus painted Nissan, as Valenteus now going through the corner is tucked in behind Ed Benson in the GTPs. So the GTP traffic is starting to cause a little bit of a problem for Valenteus as far as making up time.
And this is where the likes of Reed has an opportunity to put the pressure on, and if he can maintain just enough momentum, he might be able to go and retake that first place right at the end by boxing our leader in behind the GTOs.
And the lead of the GTOs is actually close now. It is only 1 car between Mickey Friesen and Andreas Schuster, and it's a lapped GTO. If we take a look right now, there is Henry Morse, actually, who's under heavy pressure right now, or rather part of a 4-car train. Ian Haycox, Jamie Hamill-Smith, Henry Morse, and Josh Brain for 6th position in the GTOs.
Absolutely screaming around, having to battle it out as our Nissans come screeching on by with their V6 turbocharged motors, going and putting out just enough power to get themselves going and keep out of traffic around the outside. Always difficult, but Henry making sure he can stay in for the fight, going and showing a bit of battle damage to the front right of his car, hoping that he can stay on the back of Jamie.
Absolutely, keeping my eyes on the battles for the lead in both classes. In the GTBs, it's out to 1.5 seconds. In the GTOs, it's down underneath a second. Mickey Friesen starting to close into the back of Noel Lundberg. Here we see a replay of Laust Olsen into yard sale, takes it too deep again. I wonder if he's having some technical issues today, because that's the second very late, very deep moment that he had into the corner. So unfortunately for him, he's now taken it to the garage and taken a pit stop, a drive-through rather, because of his incident points.
It's always a tough time, and especially here at some point, it's unrelenting. If you think about the circuits on iRacing that will just bring out the incident points, and no matter what category you're in, some point is one of those highest top-tiering lists that you can have.
This 4-car battle, such a tight battle between Ian Haycock, Jamie Hamill-Smith, Henry Morse, and Josh Brain, now part of that battle as well. We're going to take a look at the replay here. This is what happened with Tim Shoecraft. He's disqualified due to incident points, or, well, okay, maybe not due to incident points, maybe just due to an incident.
That is one way to go out with a bang, and assistance of the tire wall included. And teams are going to be working overnight to try and get that car sorted out. Jamie Smith, though, getting the run up around the outside, late on the anchors, trying to throw the 32 around, and just not able to get past Ian Haycox at the moment, who is defending the apex. But Jamie Hamilsmith has the inside line, backed off a little bit early to allow Ian to come in by, try and get the revs back up, a little dip into the dirt, and now just going as flames bellow out the side of the Audi GTOs as they go through the gears, off the throttle, and just that overfuel through the turbos is just working like a charm.
I can report that Nick Mecanos almost got past by Fair and Grau through turn one again. There was actually side-by-side contact between the two of them as Nick was on the inside, Fair on the outside. Nick retains that third position as Jamie Hamilsmith still trying to put pressure on Ian Haycox. That was a close moment there. And these are leaders who just got held up. That was Valenteus majorly held up by this battle. Jacob Reed right on the back of Valenteus. Valenteus is going to get a better run through turn one, but with just over 5 minutes to go, the battle for the lead is tight once again.
Reed having an opportunity, but take a look at the fights going on as everyone's trying to move forward. Everyone's trying to gain some points here, especially as we get closer to the end of the season. Jacob Reed getting closer and closer under braking, but just not taking those aggressive lines to really fight it out. Car set up a little bit more sensitive at the moment, just to ensure he keeps going. Nicholas McConnor, though, in for a fight as well, trying to hold that fourth place.
Hold that third place, rather, but Fair and Grau able to sneak his way by. Nick McConnell's causing a little bit of contact between the two of them before they got to turn one, and Fair and Grau said that's enough and closed the door on Nick McConnell in a little bit of a rude way. We'll see whether or not Nick can get back to the rear wing of Fair and Grau and keep that pressure on.
Fair and Grau not going to back down from this fight, getting very, very unsettled through the S's, but now trying to snap the toe of Nicholas at the moment, who is keeping rather close. Remember, there's going to be no pressure on that nose, so it's relying on pure mechanical grip to keep you all sorted. And it goes by one of our bigger battles in the Audi GTOs, and Moore's unfortunately going to get a whole lot of it.
Absolutely. Early on the brakes is Grau because he's trying to make sure he doesn't take away the apex from an Audi he's trying to turn in. Fortunately, Jamie Hamilsmith giving that apex up. Nick McConnell's going to follow Fair and Grau through as they go. Ian Haycox is going to have his apex taken away as they go through the quick twist. Left-hander, right-hander, they go. And now Fair and Grau able to gap McConnell just a little bit. And there is Henry Morse, who's had a spin. Unfortunately, he's off track. This was through the quick left and right hander as well, through Wagon Bend.
That was nose first towards the tires, and makes me wonder how much damage is to the car. And just being moved slightly offline, unfortunately, does it. But fastest lap for Andreas, yet again, a 57.3 this time around, really trying to get through it. I've got to say, doing the fastest lap time of the race. Jacob Reed going and doing a 58.53 on that loss. But this is including traffic that we've been keeping an eye on. And check how the amount of gravel started to build up over the circuit.
3 minutes left to go. Valenteus has opened the gap back up to 1.8 seconds. They do have a lot of traffic ahead of them right now. A lot of different groups, none of them battling with each other, but just a lot of traffic to deal with. Look at this. Nick McConnell's trying to put heavy pressure on Fair and Grau. Look at him trying to take this opportunity. Into yard sale they go. And Fair and Grau, oh my goodness. A little bit of contact there with Ilka Kodasalo gives the position back to Nick McConnell.
Ilka Kodasalo, unfortunately, doing the Pac-Man Go style, getting caught out, and now able to rejoin. Thankfully, not too much damage on the car, but definitely now having to scrub those tires clean before getting back onto the big impact in the background.
Is that Laus Stolson? I believe it is Laus Stolson. Yes, it was him. Unfortunately, he's taken a tow, so Laus Stolson's day goes from worst to absolutely the worst in a quick moment.
Well, definitely it wasn't through yard sale, but left a few spares that might have landed at yard sale at that point.
So Carlos Lopez Jr. putting some pressure onto, rather getting some pressure from Felix Nilsson. These two have been relatively inseparable throughout the day as long as they've had some clear air to deal with. And now they're still nose to tail as they continue battling. Just under 1:45 to go. The lead of the GTPs is 1.5 seconds. Mickey Friesen has lost the initiative in the GTOs, unfortunately. He's now back 2.7 seconds back of Noah Lundberg. There's the moment with Laus Stolson.
Oh, just putting the left rear onto the dirt, and it spat him out towards the wall, absolutely decimating the car. And definitely Laos going to be having a milkshake for that, just to calm down. But not much time to go. 2 laps to battle it through, and 2 laps to get it done or dusted.
Ove Trengray trying to put some pressure on Philip Lake, trying to get on that last step of the roster. I can report Brendan Lim has had a big incident, so he's now taken, he hasn't taken a tow, actually. He's just parked it up on the side of the road. Here is Trengray. The inside was left open by Phil Lake, which is a little bit of a surprise, but Trengray very, very deep. Philip Lake's going to try the over-under and cut back and take the position back.
Tells me that was a little bit set up. Well, let's see how good you are on the brakes, Trengray. And, well, unfortunately, the Audi locking up under the anchors and now having to close up. But it's going to be a bit of a difficult time for our GTOs as Trengray having to just try and defend his apexes, but through yard sale, having to snatch the apex away from the GTOs.
White flag for Andres Valenteus, but he's gotten majorly held up by Doug Cloud and another GTO who are battling. But Jacob Reed can't get his way by either. He got held up as well. So with still 1 second separating the two of them, they don't have any traffic ahead of them except for Fernando Serrato in their same class. So if Andres Valenteus can get a clean lap done, which he usually can, this is going to be his 5th win on the trot in the GTPs, and he will be completely undefeated in both classes still going into round 9. If he does this and he is undefeated every time he's shown up this season, that would be a feat unheard of in multi-class racing. Valenteus, though, taking it through the final corner. He is going to take the win here at Summit Point. What a battle he had with Jacob Reed, but Jacob, once again, couldn't bring it to him this time.
Was closer and closer, but gotta give it up to Valenteus on a phenomenal run. But going a bit further back, the leader of our Audi GTO, Noel Lundberg, will come across the line, taking the checkered flag, and has survived it all, battled it all, and will be smiling all the way to the bank, maximizing the points. Mickey Friesen comes across the line with just a huge amount of pace. You could see gearing down, getting himself comfortable, and what a run for them. Trengray, unfortunately, not able to get the pass down and dusted just as yet. Going to look for the inside through the final corner.
Oh, he might have to
not
run.
Close enough.
He's got to run. He's going to take a look to the inside. Is it going to be enough speed? He takes the draft off to Shady Ahmad. They cross the line, and it's going to be Philip Lake retaining 3rd position. Trengray gave it his best, but came up 28 thousandths short.
Great stuff in Haycox. Despite all of it, has managed to come across the line. What a stellar run for the IMSA Vintage Series.
A fantastic race out here. One that with a lot of contact, a lot of tears, but Andres Valenteus came home with the win over Jacob Reed. Nick McConnell just didn't have anything for those two drivers 17 seconds back this time around. Jacob Reed, we thought he had the win in the bag a couple of times, but the traffic just falling afoul of him, it means that he fell back to 1.3 seconds. Farron Grau finishes 22 seconds back of the lead, but was very recently on the back of Nick McConnell, battling for that 3rd position. Gabri Martinez comes home with the top 5. Shady Ahmad finishes in 6th spot. I believe that's his best finish of the season so far. Dustin Hiroder comes home in 7th, with Fernando Salvarado 8th, and Brendan Lim, Mr. Consistency, still in the top 10 in 9th position, even after having a couple of offs. Christoph Lesniak recovers from getting punted into turn 1 on lap 3 to come home at the 10th position, with Carlos Lopez C, who's going to come home as the first driver a lap down. Eki Anderson in 12th position, with Felix Nielsen, Matthew Cockerman, Daniel Gallus running out your top 5, or your top 15, and the last driver's 1 lap down. Victor Jimenez is going to be 2 laps down alongside Ed Benson, with Laust Olsen being the first of your drivers to DNF. And then it is Braden Shafroth and Mark Geller, who also DNF today from the GTPs. But what about the GTOs, Steven?
Not much happened at the front, with Noel Lundberg taking the win miles ahead of the pack. Mickey Friesen had to battle it out to hold 2nd place. Philip Lake just managing to beat over Trengray. And then Kitso running in 5th place. Ian Hancock comes across the line in 6th ahead of Jamie Hamill-Smith, Josh Brain, Henry Morse, and Doug Cloud in 10th place despite all the carnage. Torben Pollock gets the 11th place spot with Carlo França in 12th. Joseph Van Becker, Alton Hark in 14th, Molo Dekra In 15th, Paul Clover. In 16th, 17th is Andreas Schuster. Tim Shoecraft, who we saw impacting that wall and going flying. Jamie Kuhn, who's going to be definitely going and tending to wounds after the impacts. And Jora Bosuni, who was our first retirement in 20th. Christian Brown a little bit further down. And Seamus Power, unfortunately, part of the early carnage that went on here at some point.
Well, as expected, it was a fairly chaotic race here for the IMSA Vintage series, but some great battles out there as well, especially some side-by-side battles lasting half a lap or more. Steven, what are your thoughts after this one?
I can't wait for the next one. It's the IMSA Vintage series. It's the best. And let's be honest, nothing is better than going back to grassroots racing. No worries about traction control and ABS. It is brute force power. It is insanity moves. And when you've got tracks that are just splendid, but test the skills of the drivers, I can't wait for the rest of the season.
Absolutely, and the rest of the season, it's going to be fairly short. We're into the last 3 rounds as well. The next round, I believe, is going to be Sonoma. So these drivers are going to have a very similar. It's going to be a similar feel to Summit Point, but just with a little bit more. Or rather, sorry, yes, next round is actually Spa, not Sonoma. And so that's a very different feel. A draft track, actually, for the GTOs. They don't usually get a lot of separation, but when the GTPs cut through, it can actually break up the field quite a bit.
For the GTPs, it's going to be a Rouge. That's going to be the interesting stuff. How do you set the car up with low drag, ensuring that you create as much suction underneath it, needing in those tunnels to get your way through? Blanchemont's always a difficult one to deal with, especially in the GTP class, but I'm looking forward to seeing how the drivers are going to set their cars up, how they're going to move forward, and also new names to come in, because I don't think this is going to be the end of it. We've seen a lot of reoccurring names coming in, guys are moving forward, and now people are coming in and enjoying the classics and getting back to, well, where the fun racing is.
Absolutely. This series has really revitalized over the last couple of years, and it's been awesome to see. And we want to give a big thank you to the IMSA Vintage series for bringing us back for this season. And I want to give a thank you to our team today, Stephen, Daniel, and Dougie. We're going to close out for the moment, but also make sure to check out our social media, website, and merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. As you can see on your screen is going to be Spa next week at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on May 17th. Don't miss that. It's going to be the classic pits version, but they're not going to be in the pits because it's only going to be a 40-minute race for those drivers. Next up for GSRC, though, is the Skip Barber Race Series. That is the one that is at Sonoma, and that's tomorrow at 5 a.m. Eastern Time. That is May 11th. So don't miss that, or the other broadcasts that are also listed here on your screen. We hope you've enjoyed joining us today as much as we've enjoyed bringing this racing to you. We hope to see you back again soon, but until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
This is iRacing.